Now let's cross to the House of Commons, where the Home Office is being asked an urgent question on the child grooming scandal.
We are pressing ahead with key recommendations of the independent inquiry, including the mandatory duty to report. Baroness Casey, who conducted a no-holds-barred review into grooming gangs offending in Rotherham, is currently overseeing a national audit on group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse. The audit will identify what further work is needed. It is looking at the scale, nature and profile of group-based abuse, including the characteristics of offenders. It will conclude in the coming weeks, and I have already committed to publishing the findings. The Home Secretary and I have always been clear that the first priority in tackling this heinous offending is getting perpetrators behind bars and getting justice for the victims and survivors. That is why all police forces in England and Wales have been asked to review historic grooming gangs investigations that were closed with no further action, and to pursue new lines of inquiry and reopen investigations where appropriate. We are also going further than ever before to support local areas to hold independent local inquiries, which can drive action and accountability at a local level. That is what inquiries in Telford, Manchester and Rotherham have delivered effectively, and that is the approach we would like to see rolled out elsewhere. In January, we said we would support 5 local inquiries. We are moving ahead with that commitment and have confirmed that funding will be made available to Oldham Council as part of this work. We are currently working with a range of experts to develop a best practice local inquiries framework so that local areas that conduct inquiries do so in a way that actually delivers justice, accountability and truth, commanding the support of victims and survivors. Our focus is on delivering meaningful, tangible change for victims and survivors. That means delivering on key recommendations of Professor Jay's national inquiry. It means getting perpetrators behind bars and, most importantly of all, protecting children today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The whole nation is shocked by the rape gang scandal. Thousands of young teenage girls systematically raped over years by men of predominantly Pakistani heritage. Girls like Jane, who was repeatedly gang raped at the age of just 12. The police found her being abused by an illegal immigrant, but instead of arresting the illegal immigrant, they arrested her. That is sick. The last government took action by setting up the wider J inquiry and the Grooming Gangs Task Force, but the truth is that is not enough. There is now clear evidence that those in authority covered up these rapes.
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're travelling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Saily using the link in the description below, and if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us.
Because the perpetrators were mainly of Pakistani heritage. Last week, I met retired Detective Chief Inspector John Pecos. In Bradford, he witnessed the abuse of a young girl in a car, but he was then instructed by a Chief Superintendent to drop the matter to avoid antagonising Bradford's Muslim community. Covering up the rape of young girls for that reason is one of the most immoral things I have ever heard. Yet not a single person, not one, has ever been held to account for these cover-ups. That is why we need a national statutory public inquiry which can compel production of evidence. Even last year, authorities in Manchester were still covering up, leading to the chairs of the local Manchester inquiry to resign. 5 local inquiries, which can't compel the production of evidence, just won't do. 50 towns are affected, not 5. And Bradford, where some of the worst abuse occurred, is refusing to cooperate with any inquiry at all. So there won't be an inquiry in Bradford because their council is refusing to participate. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary promised on the 16th of January that Baroness Casey would complete a rapid audit within 3 months. Well, 3 months has now passed and we have heard nothing whatsoever. Almost there. The government said there would be 5 local inquiries, but we know nothing about 4 of them, and the man charged with setting them up, Tom Crowther, said to the Home Affairs Committee on the 1st of this month that he had been sidelined by the minister over there and, quote, did not know what was going on. Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, I recently met Marlon West, whose daughter was trafficked, abused and raped by mainly Asian men, including in Bradford. He said this government should be ashamed of themselves and they should hold a national inquiry. Jane, who was trafficked and gang raped at 12, also wants a statutory national inquiry. Labour Mayor Andy Burnham, Harriet Harman and the Labour MP for Rotherham all agree. So will the Minister do what they and Marlon and Jane are all begging for and hold that national inquiry so those who covered up that scandal are at last held to account?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Shadow Home Secretary, and I say that I don't need to read out the things that were found in other local inquiries to know, because I speak to the victims. I spoke to some of the victims of grooming gangs this morning. I will speak to some more tomorrow. I have spoken to them from Oxford, from Birmingham, from Rochdale, from Rotherham, from Oldham. I know exactly the issue of the cover-up, as does everybody already, because of the many local inquiries that have told us that this happened and the national inquiry that has told us that there were cover-ups. What we must focus on is making sure, like happened in Telford, that there is a local process of accountability that actually changes things on the ground, and that is what I will do. I have been trying to change the issue of this on the ground for all of my life. Since the very first time I ever met a girl who had been ignored, I will continue to do that and do what is right for the victims.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I genuinely welcome, Mr. Speaker, the renewed focus on this issue that's come in this Parliament. In the Home Affairs Select Committee, we've heard evidence from Professor Jay, who gave evidence to our committee about her report, which made a number of recommendations.
Of course, that was Jess Phillips speaking there. We had an urgent question. What she said was that she would support 5 local inquiries, and the support was available for Oldham Council, who actually specifically requested a national inquiry. She said she's going to focus on delivering meaningful change. Chris Philp asked the question to her as well, and asked her whether she would support a national inquiry. Jess Phillips seemed quite adamant that she wanted to do local inquiries because there's local accountability. Of course, on the other side of that, Chris Philp was worried about the fact that many of those perpetrators were from the Muslim community, which meant that the police were concerned about upsetting that community, or perhaps the government were concerned about upsetting that community at the time. So this is why they didn't follow it through. And also there appears to be, as he suggested, a cover-up, which is why perhaps they don't want to have a national inquiry. But let's see if the pressure mounts on Jess Phillips and she eventually looks into having a national inquiry. It does seem that I don't quite understand why she's adamant that she won't, but she said she'd spoken to some of the victims earlier today. And ironically, though, one of the times a couple of months ago when she was asked whether she'd spoken to any of the victims, her answer was actually no. So at least she's done that. But we will follow this story and we'll bring you all the latest.